Why don't you believe? Believe in this podcast! And if you're like, what is Jacob singing? Well, I'm singing the melody of the song Believe by the band Dig for good reason, because on Waterproof Records today, I'm welcoming Scott Hackwith, frontman, guitarist, songwriter, the guy behind the band Dig. Now, Dig started in the early 90s in Los Angeles, and I bought their debut album in 1993, but that's why I'm so excited to welcome Scott onto the show today, because he's been up to a lot of things over the past 30 plus years, and I want to bring myself up to speed and introduce you to this band if you weren't already familiar with them, or if you were a fan of Dig, this is your chance to really dig in. Oh, see what I did there? So let's get to it. Let's talk to Scott. Let's hear about the history of Dig and what they're up to now. It's time to talk to Scott Hackwith from Dig. Let's go.
Things are gonna change. I can feel it.
If this gonna be that kind of party, I'm gonna...
Waterproof Records. Waterproof Records. Waterproof Records with Jacob Gibbons.
All right, of course, before we get down to the conversation, I want to tell you about DistroKid. By now, you've heard about me talk about them before, but if you haven't, this is your chance to save 30% off your first year. Use distrokid.com/VIP/waterproof. If you use that link and you sign up and you upload your music, they'll shave 30% off of the cost for your music to be hosted for an entire year, which is on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, tons of other streaming platforms. So use distrokid.com/VIP/waterproof and save yourself 30%. I use it. You should use it too. I know you're working on that music right now and you need to share it, because I held on to my music for too long and I just recently published stuff from 20 years ago. And you're damn right. I used my own DistroKid link to get it up there. So use the link, save yourself money, and share your art with the world. All right, now that that's done, let's welcome my guest. Welcome to Waterproof Records, Scott Hackwith from Dig.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you on the show, especially since we've met several times, hung out, and even performed together on stage.
Which was awesome.
It was awesome. It was huge for you to do that for Gen X Fest. Did you have fun?
Yeah, of course. I know, it was great. And
Yeah.
it sounded amazing. Like, you guys are just,
I thought
so
it turned out
tight and good. you
Yeah.
know?
Well, thank you. I will own up though, like when we did the sound check, it was like flawless. I was like, everything went perfect. And then when we were actually doing it in front of the crowd, right where it goes quiet, when you're, before you come in, before the instrumental, I was still playing full distortion. And I was like midway through, I was like, oh no.
Right.
So I was like, just finish this cycle through and then,
Right.
and then take off the distortion pedal. But thankfully, I think just kind of the cacophony of the sound and the energy in the room. I was like, nobody noticed. Well, now they all know because I just confessed it.
But it was great. It was a good night for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting to have you here because something happened today, even though when this airs, it's now a couple weeks later. But you, the band Dig, has a new record, and as of right now, it's on the streamers.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it's been definitely work in progress. We've been working on that record for at least, I want to say 5 years,
Okay.
And then the release process has just been slow. We did a soft release, and this is a soft, hard release right now.
A semi-release.
Yeah, semi-release.
Not to be
it's
dirty,
out.
but...
And then we have vinyl coming out in October. So so this is a process. And, and then next year we plan on touring. We have a new booking agent. We're excited about TKO is. We're with them now, and so we'll have some opportunities to go out and do some shows.
That is awesome. One of the cool things about connecting with you is kind of how it came together. I wanted to talk about that a bit because I have known the band Dig since I was in high school. I had your debut album. Look, I've got the hat right here here, and then rocking the merch. For those of you just listening, I'm wearing a Dig shirt. But I think one of the coolest things was I was in Guitar Center one day, and Johnny approaches me, and he's just like, "Hey, I'm in the band Dig or whatever." And so we talked for a little bit, and then if I'm correct, it was your child that
told
found
yes,
the video that I had made about the band, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
My daughter Claire, she you got to check this out. She's, oh my God, you know? And that was amazing. You know,
that was cool.
Yes.
That was a cool, and so that's the magic of this is that the series that I had started doing on Sundays, which the idea of it was 120 minutes essentially, right? I was trying to bring back, because all those, what was it about those shows, those underground shows, they always seem to be like on Sunday. That was a thing on MTV. So I was like, I'm going to bring that back, and I'm going to bring back bands that we remember from the 90s, but maybe they didn't get the chance to be seen or heard by everybody and over time. So I initially called it Buried Treasures, but I changed that name because too many people got mad at me calling it Buried. They'd be like, I listen to this every day.
Right.
It's not Buried.
Yes.
But I knew I had to do Believe, because that song, I mean, to this day, it'll just pop in my head. You know, it's you have so many great songs and so many great records and EPs, and I'm loving what's on the new album as well. But when I knew we were going to do Gen X Fest and I Can Have You, I was like, man, the idea of going up on stage and doing Believe with Scott is totally a dream come true. So that was a monumental moment for me, and that song just really stands the test of time. It's just a powerful song.
Well, thank you. I don't know what to say to that. That's just,
But the new record, so I believe it was last year, and it's called I.
Yes.
Yes, I.
Because there's an eye on the cover.
There's an eye on the cover. That's a beautiful eye. Is that your eye?
That's as deep as it gets. I don't even know.
Okay, we don't know.
I don't know.
We don't. It's just a great photo of a close up blue eye.
Right. We're waiting to get the cease and desist letter. Like,
right.
That's my eye.
That's my eye. Excuse me.
Yes.
I know my cornea anywhere. It's a great shot, and it's I, but it's not written out as I. It's the letter I, and it's in brackets.
Yes.
Yeah.
Simple.
Well, is there a story behind why it got that name?
No. Because there's an eye on the cover. It doesn't,
I love it.
I could come up with like a very deep story.
Let's create one here on the show.
Yeah.
It's the I, but it's trapped within.
Right.
It's like the I within me, the I within you. I don't know.
And then there's a lot of eye covers now. There's a few of them out there.
Yeah.
I mean, we have had ours for over a year and a half now.
That's true.
So anybody that came after that,
copying dig.
Yeah.
I can confirm because I saw it. I remember, I'm probably not as early as you had it, but I remember you shared with me about the new record on Bandcamp, and I got a chance to listen to it, which it's great. It's a great record. Like you said, 5 years, and you guys sound great. Your voice sounds great. There's a lot of rockers on there, and I'm excited for more people to hear them. And knowing that you're going on tour now, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. Like this time around, like people coming out of the woodwork of people that connected to Believe in that time period of 30 years ago that are just truly like still into it and still, that's I'm just blown away. When people reach out and it's like, that was my favorite song in college, and
well, it's an exciting time for this. I've talked about it on the show before. There is something about today's kids. I mean, you have a daughter who probably appreciates it as well, that they grew up in this digital world, and there's something so fascinating to them about a time where things were analog and tangible and real. And so they're experiencing things from back in the day, and they're like, that's when it was good, so everything's having this great
it kind of was really a good time
in
music. Some of the best bands ever came out of the 90s, and I equate it to like it's when I was growing up, it's like bands from like the 60s and 70s.
Totally. Yeah. Well, let's get into that because getting into the Waterproof record, I loved your choice, and so share what was your.
Is that a generic choice? Like
no, nobody has done this band yet on my show. Can you believe it?
Okay,
so go for it.
I'll take it. Well, Pink Floyd, The Dark Side of the Moon.
There you go.
8 years old. I had an older sister. She had a great record collection.
Yeah,
and I would put on headphones and listen to that record all the way through. Go back, listen to it. I knew every little, chime, every all the sounds, effects, and it really made me feel something. It would just take me to another world.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. At 8
Yes.
too. So that's really young to have such a mature soundscape.
Well,
I think.
we moved to this this is a whole other story, but we moved out to the desert, to this really small little town called Acumba.
Okay.
It's outside of San Diego, high desert. And my dad was like the local sheriff there, population like 300. Our nearest neighbor was like 3 miles away.
Okay.
So I was out there with no friends, didn't know anybody. You know, my sister, she was 5 years older than me. She had nothing to do with me.
Sure.
And my parents were like both working, gone. So it's just, and actually in this mobile home out in the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
Listening to Pink Floyd and escaping into, you know, the music and all that.
Yeah. That's how it happens. So you're California born and raised, been here your whole life? Yeah. And so it's usually an older sibling or older kid in your life or cousin or something that really dials you in and clues you in on something that's kind of not in your age range. Like you're with other 8-year-olds in school, or they're not repping Pink Floyd in the hallways, right? But
Sure.
but you have this person who shows it to you, somebody special, and they're like, this is real music, and it just takes you away. I love that you chose Pink Floyd. There's a lot of, that is obviously one of the most influential bands in rock and kind of getting into these psychedelic realms and exploring just walls of sound. And what were some of the things about Dark Side of the Moon? Did you like that it was a concept album, or what were some of the things that really took you?
Like at 8, I wasn't really thinking about that so much. It's just that the way that it would make me feel, and the melodies, and it, like, you know, I could feel it, you know, as at a young age, but it was definitely, I mean, every day for probably months, I would listen to that over and over again.
Yeah.
Then it moved to like Elton John, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
Nice.
That was just, you know, incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there wasn't much thought that, like, because I wouldn't think of it as this a concept record? Is this, you know, it was just how the music made me feel.
Yeah, and that's key. I mean, that is the ingredient of why it's called the waterproof record, and what this is all about is there's something, music is kind of handed to us. It's on the radio. It's we don't have a decision in it, and then one day you have this thing that you feel like is yours, and you've discovered it, and it kind of changes the trajectory. Right. So, how did that affect you as a guitar player and as a singer and a musician? When did that happen? So my fascination with just music in general, at an early age, anytime I was around like an instrument, I would always, you know, I had some cousins in the big city of San Diego that had like a music room, and I would go, you know, I would get to that house and I would just play piano forever and make up songs. And so, and I was just really drawn to it. I had friends of mine that had older brothers that were in bands that we'd go watch them rehearse, and just like, that was like the most amazing thing in the world, like to see these guys, like the electric guitar and soloing, and like this sound of electric guitar, you know, and then, you know, getting into like Jimi Hendrix and like, you know, Jeff Beck and that sort of stuff. And it wasn't, when I was in 8th grade, we moved back to the city. Again, no friends. my mom said, why don't you learn how to play the guitar? I'm like, okay. Yeah. She bought me this acoustic guitar, which I still have today. Do you really?
Yes. It's all got holes in it, and you know, whatever, and I still write on that.
Do you really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I do not have my first guitar. It is long gone. But usually those first guitars are not of the best quality, because, you know, it's like the best one you could get. But the fact that this thing still exists with you today, it's like, holy moly. Is it a name?
It's
brand?
a Sigma.
Sigma.
Which was Martin Guitars went to like Taiwan or somewhere to like do some cheaper guitars, but the quality of it, and then I've like looked it up since, you know, and Googled it, and they were made to, you know, Martin quality. So it sounds amazing. Everybody loves it when they play it. Like, it's kind of one of those instant kind of like, this is it.
That's awesome.
So I started playing, got the acoustic, took some lessons, which was, strange because it was like guys that were just zoned out, like teaching me. But so I, taught myself basically.
Yeah.
Then I graduated to the electric and getting amps and then jamming with friends in bedrooms. Then, starting a band at, probably when I was 16, 17.
Yeah, high school. So do you remember the band names? I love finding this out.
First band,
Yeah.
Desire.
Desire.
And we had a business card.
Ooh,
Yes.
slick.
And we would do, the singer was like, he was a funny guy, but he would go to people and say, hey, let us have a party at your house. We'll like buy the beer.
Yeah.
We will help you clean up afterwards. We'll run the door. We'll charge to get in.
Yeah.
And it was a business. And,
How entrepreneurial for this kid.
and then we figured out like, well, when the cops come, they take they'll bust you and take your money. So we would do like money drops in our car, bags of. I mean, these were like full on ragers.
Wow,
Yeah.
this is thinking things through
yes,
in a way
yeah.
that I don't think a lot of teenagers do.
It was pretty amazing.
That's also a really good pickup line too. You have a business card that says Desire on it.
Right.
So you could literally walk up to a girl and just be like, Desire.
Yeah, I think I'm sure it had everybody's name of the band on
That's
on
great.
it. And yes.
Did Desire sound
Desire.
anything of what Dig would become, or would you say no? It was,
It was
more
very
in the 80s.
metal. Like
it was metal.
I was like growing up, I was like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest.
Yes.
Full on.
I was too.
Yeah.
Big into metal. I
Yeah.
still am a huge metal fan. But yeah, so Desire was going for the harder stuff.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. From there, yeah. Then I got a punk rock girlfriend that turned me on to. She had a huge record collection, so everything from like post punk, like, and one of my favorite bands was TSOL that she turned me on to. Then I ended up getting in the band later.
Yeah.
In life.
Well,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Dead Milkman taught us punk rock girl.
Right,
They find you.
Yes.
They find you. Well, that's awesome. So you have a punk rock girlfriend that opens that door up. But then what's the formation of Dig? How did you guys all come together? It's 91, right?
Yeah, so I had been touring with TSOL just as a guitar player, just out, and that's how they made a living.
Okay.
So it was a good 4 years of nonstop on the road,
Wow.
learning every trick of the trade, how to tour right. I mean, it's like four grown men and I was younger, and these guys are old.
Yeah.
To me, they were like in their late 20s and 30s.
Right. And back then, you're like, my God,
Yeah,
will I
you're
ever
like-
be that old?
So, but it was like two dudes to a bed, two
Yeah.
queen size beds, and in a van. And one of the longest tour was 6 months, with one weekend home, visit. 6 months in a van with those guys. So I definitely paid my dues.
Sure.
I learned how to tour, but it came a time, and I was writing my own stuff all along. I've always, written a lot.
Yeah.
And it was time to sort of start my own thing. And at that time, I was working in the film business. I was at Propaganda Films, like I was working with Dave Fincher, like
Really?
yeah, like just tons of like Propaganda back in those days was like
Yeah.
Wild West of filmmaking.
Sure.
And I was an art director, so I did a lot of commercials and a lot of music videos and stuff. So I had like a real job, so I was supporting myself with that. And then I was writing when I would not work. I would be in my bedroom on Fountain and Formosa, writing my songs in the green room. Which is,
Yes, on the record. Yeah.
And then, I got to a point where I had a good batch of songs together. Then I slowly just started putting the band together. And I did the Music Connection ad.
Really?
Yeah, which was, how that turns out. It's like just every freak in the world coming over to the house. And
Right.
You don't know who's, this is you can't check him out on Instagram.
No,
It's
just somebody just shows
just
up.
shows up, and then you have to kind of like sit through it.
Yeah, and it's LA. It's not like you're living in the Midwest somewhere. You've got like the weirdest of the weird.
Yes.
Right, for sure.
So that was a fun. I wish I would have filmed that because that would have been great. But
But everybody who's in the band is just kind of the connections in LA, just like this guy knows this person.
Yeah, it was like I found a drummer. That was actually that came through. I think an ad actually.
Really?
Yeah. So the first was a drummer, Anthony Smedili, and he. From there, it was. I found Johnny, I think, was the next to come along. And Johnny grew up in San Diego. I didn't really know him in San Diego, but he came through a friend of a friend. And then he knew John, another San Diego guy, which I knew of, but I didn't really know. And that worked. And then then we found the bass player through an ad.
Yeah. And that's Dig.
That was Dig.
Yeah.
And then we rehearsed like crazy.
Really?
Like we would go in at least 5 days a week. Nightingale rehearsal studios, and which is still around.
It's still around.
I went there recently. I moved locations, but
there's still a
Mike Nightingale still
still there,
rocking it.
I've been there. Yeah. That's crazy. So you rehearse a lot, and everybody's kind of coming in. You're coming in with your influences. So when the band is starting out, do you have a very clear idea of what it is that you want to make this sound, or is it kind of a discovery together?
It was definitely based off of influences that were around me at the time. My Bloody Valentine, Smashing Pumpkins, the Fugazi, just everything that I was listening to, like Spaceman 3, or that. Ride was another huge influence. You know?
I hear a little Jane's Addiction in there as well. I don't know if that was in there too, just because it's LA.
It's maybe. I don't know. I don't know where that came from.
Okay.
Well, Dave Jordan produced our first record, and he produced Jane's. And then I was at that point I was really good friends with Perry. We hung out a lot. It was
really
And yes, I was a huge Jane's Addiction fan. So it's definitely
it's there, but it's not thought about. Whereas somebody would point out any kind of influence, and it almost takes somebody on the outside to point it out to you.
Right.
You're like, right, I guess I would have had that touch.
Because I never thought about it, because Perry was such a unique.
His voice is totally like, you hear that sound and you're like, that's Perry Farrell's voice. Right. But I think it was maybe not the vocals. It was just, there was something about the bass and the bass and the interplay with the guitars reminded me a bit of some of the stuff from that really early Jane stuff,
right?
Especially on the first record.
Yeah, I've heard that myself, and
but that's cool. So the journey of you're a band, you're playing around LA, and then what really leads to this? You get the major label debut, the '93. Like, how does that come about?
A drummer had a friend that worked at Radioactive.
Okay,
Karen Maluk, and she came to a rehearsal and wanted to sign us. And
amazing.
That was it. But at that time, so I was already out with TSOL. I was out we had played Hollywood a bunch, and at that time there was like Coconut Teaser, Club Lingerie. There was like these clubs that I felt that if a band goes and plays Coconut Teaser, they're going to stay at the Coconut Teaser the rest of their life. It just seemed that way to me.
Right.
That you couldn't break out, because if you weren't selling out Coconut Teaser, at a certain, like in a few months of like playing out, like the industry, like, the record companies were not interested, because I think they would judge you on that.
Sure.
And it was just like, I don't want to play LA, so we went out to Montrose, your hometown.
Yeah, right.
Some
right. Where I used
crazy, weird biker bar, and
Yeah.
played for like 3 guys that were not happy that were so loud. You know?
Yeah.
And so we go out and play like weird shows just to get our act together. But then when it came to the labels, and we did have like Warner Brothers stepped up. They heard about us. They wanted to come down and see. Well, this is really bad, but they booked SIR for a showcase for us, and we didn't show up. It was just really bad.
Yeah.
And I wish that we would have.
Yeah.
But we were
okay.
But corporate rock sucks, and we're not, we didn't. It's,
right.
And so at the point, and we had already decided we were going to go somewhere else, but we're just young and dumb and like, why burn that bridge?
Right. But, I mean, look, Gen X cut from a different cloth. This idea of not selling out, that was a big part of our culture.
Yeah. At that time.
Oh, my God. I don't think people realize now in the world today what a big deal that was. Like selling out. Because now that doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. That idea is gone. Everybody sell out as much as you want, it seems like, in modern music. But back then, I get it.
Yeah, no. And us coming out of, kind of out of nowhere, like K-Rock's picks Believe as a single. That wasn't even our single.
It wasn't?
No. They wouldn't. No. The first single was, F You. I don't know if I can cuss.
Yeah. You can absolutely drop it.
Okay. Yes. Fuck You was the first single.
Second to last song on the first record.
And that was more of like knowing radio is not going to play this. And it was just the car calling card, pay attention to us. And
yes.
then the next song was I'll Stay High.
Wow. Yeah.
Which at that time, you can't really say that on the radio.
Those are both controversial things to be putting out there. Yeah.
So of course they said no to that. And then they go, but we really like the band. So they picked Believe and they ran with it. And then because of that, MTV picked it up.
Yeah.
And so, and I, with a friend of mine, did the video for like no money.
Because you had the experience.
Yes.
You knew how to shoot music videos. Right.
So we did that video, and their label's super happy because they didn't have to, people at that time were spending millions of dollars on, big budget.
Sure.
It was, just a small budget video would be $500,000,
Right.
And we pulled that out for like $15,000,
And I gotta tell you, I remember the video very, very well. And I will say it held up alongside the other alternative heavy hitters on MTV. Because you had like cuts to like black and white footage and poolside and like
very 90s.
Very 90s.
Of that moment.
The aesthetic is there. You have the big blown out colors and it's crossfades. And so it really fits along with everybody else on MTV. So you would have never known that was a shoestring budget.
Right.
So well done.
Thank you.
You put in the time to figure out how to make a music video. But yeah, so that becomes the big single, and then that's what takes you to the next level.
Yes, and then it was the indie than thou types out there were like, who are these guys?
Totally.
You know what I mean? And so like Courtney Love like totally talked shit about us.
Oh, of course.
And Melody Maker, and then So we had that sort of thing going against it, but then we had like Adam Sandler. Did I say his name right? It was like a huge fan, like people that were like on the other, not so caught up in the indie rock.
In the scene.
Yes.
The scene.
They loved it,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. People, for those who are young who are watching or listening to the show, it was one of those things where you would be hanging around with a group of friends, and this is, you'll remember this. You come in with a group of friends, you love a band. And you're all loving the band. And then the next day or the next week, you come in and be like, yeah, so I can't wait till whatever. And they're like, we're all over that now.
Right.
That's not cool anymore. And you just were like, what?
Right,
nobody gave me the memo. And it's just literally the popularity, or if something's on the radio too much, or it's just getting highlighted on MTV, or somebody in school who's like on the football team thinks it's good. So it's like, now it's out. Forget it. It's over.
True.
I don't want that song anymore.
Yes.
So that's funny about Courtney Love. Do you remember what was she just like shit talking in an interview?
Well, it's funny because there was two moments, and two different. This is all over in Europe. She said, at one point, she's listening to the song and critiquing the song.
Yeah.
And she was like, it was showing her she was watching the video.
Okay.
And she was talking about how ugly I must be because it was so blown out. The lighting, I was like so blown out. But then she said, but oh man, this song's like, she said something like, I wish I would have written this song, or she said something great about the song and the riff of the song, she really liked it. But then in Melody Maker, she's like, said we ripped off Teen Spirit, which is like, not
even close. I know how to play both songs, and I'm like, they're not even close.
Yeah, and Smashing Pumpkins, like we're just like a wannabe, just like that, which I think then. We had some dates with Billy in Europe, which
Yeah.
I ended up not being able to do because I had my son was born and I had to I couldn't go.
Yeah.
But he had heard that we were just ripping them off. But then he heard the record and he was like, "Oh no,
Right.
no, they're not."
Yeah.
And he had, we were going to go do some shows with them. But yeah, it's just,
I know. Well, it's different now. I think that, we're experiencing a time with this new record and what you guys are doing. And I'm excited to hear a little bit about that. We're just working our way through the timeline a little bit, I guess, because after the success of the first record, there was also a lot of like soundtrack contributions. And when you mentioned having the influence of Pink Floyd, I was like, you guys did a Pink Floyd cover back in the day.
Fearless, yeah.
Yeah, Fearless off Metal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that makes sense. Was that your choice?
Yeah.
You're like, I want to cover this song. Yes, absolutely.
I've been playing that song for years.
Yes. What I cover it. And then there was a couple other soundtracks, and then 2 more records in the 90s, I believe, before the band splits. Yeah,
that was Strange Times.
Yeah, Strange Times.
That was some weird, because, the whole label thing is just,
of course.
I mean, that just, we were on Radioactive, that was through MCA. MCA got swallowed up by Universal. And so, there's the horror story of like your A&R guy gets fired.
Totally.
Then you're screwed. But this, like, the entire record company got fired. And they loved us.
Yeah.
We were their token rock band. And they loved it because they're a bunch of older white dudes that just wanted
like,
to rock, but their label was like an R&B label, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And they loved us. And they were gone. Everybody's gone.
Yeah, this is a story that has been told many times over about this period because it was a gold rush of rock. Right? It was a gold rush. It was like bands were because of the grunge explosion and because of that popularity, they were just like, get them all in here right away, right? And then after a while, you can't sustain that many bands and all these different labels.
No, and in music,
and it shifted too.
That golden era of the 90s, we took way too long to put out the next record. So, 5 years later, it was a different landscape,
It changed.
And then it was like the boy band thing, like the pop music was sort of took over for a moment.
Totally.
And so labels were focusing on, obviously making money.
Yeah.
And so I don't even think maybe we did a video, but it was like they didn't, this didn't work the record.
Yeah, is Defenders 96 or 97 or is it? I can't even remember what year.
Remember. Yeah, I think
anyway,
it's 96.
Yeah, but that's the things are starting to change. MTV's starting to change.
Right.
And so guys who people who liked rock music, you had to start being like, now I need to rely on somebody to tell me about a band because it's not getting airtime. These bands aren't getting airtime anymore. So, so the band, when you guys decide to kind of call it, is it kind of a mutual decision? Like it's time to let go?
Well, I think people started to fall off. I mean, it's touring is not the funnest thing in the world when you do it a lot. Keeping a band together is, next to impossible. And it's hard. So people started, things didn't work out with certain people and, people leave and you get new. We've had I want to say 10 drummers,
Yeah.
The
spinal tap syndrome. Did anybody choke on their own vomit?
Yeah. We do have some funny stories of drummers that the reasons why.
Yeah.
It was very Spinal Tap.
Yeah, very Spinal Tap. But you got, you and Johnny and John. There's John and Johnny.
I call them the Johns.
The Johns. And so you guys, I mean, it's the gang. It's the original. Yeah.
And then, and now it's just like, we just want to have fun.
Yeah.
Like go out and do some shows and, there's no real pressure to do anything except just,
have a good time.
What we do. I mean, there's no way that I'm going to stop playing music. It's like, I mean, I still walk by a guitar and I have to pick it up, and I write a lot of music. I'm not good at finishing music, but I'm constantly writing,
Yeah. Well, how has that changed for you as a creative since the days of, the 90s and how you approach songwriting and how you approach it now, the things that have changed in life, becoming a father, just life's ups and downs. Do you think you approach it differently, or do you find yourself going back to how you sit down on that acoustic guitar and just...
Exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
Yeah, the process hasn't changed. I mean, when I'm doing stuff for film, because I was doing music for commercials and whatever, documentaries and all that stuff, that's slightly different, depending on what I'm going for. But yeah, to songwriting, sit down with acoustic, come up with an idea, and just start layering things, on the, well, now it's, Pro Tools and endless tracks and endless everything.
Yes.
Which you spend more time deciding which compressor to use than, it's like...
There's too many things.
Too many kick sound, it's like...
I know. It's one of those things that when you didn't have all these things available, you had to get creative, and now you'll find yourself opening a software app and you're looking at all these plugins and where you can place the mic virtually, it's just like exhausting. It's like, I just want to sit down and write a song. So it's probably good that you still have that original guitar, because that really does take you back mentally to that time where I don't have all the tools.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is a new DAW out that is it's like a tape player. Mm-hmm. It's like there's no, it's just you have to record like you did 16 tracks and that's it. And so I'm thinking about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Or even like getting like a 4-track machine and
a good old Tascam.
They're like really expensive.
They are, and they always were back then too.
And it's kind of like a novelty, so I'm like,
totally.
I don't want to spend the money.
I remember when I was living in Illinois, I had a friend who had a Tascam 4-track, and I borrowed it because they were so expensive. It was like you had to find like a kid who had money who had a Tascam back then. I don't know why they were always so expensive. But yeah, tell me about what that DAW is, because I'm interested as well.
I'll send you a link.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it looks like a tape machine. And
that's right.
You're limited,
That's good.
Parameters.
It's important to have parameters. Yes. So this album that's now streaming and people can listen to, you said 5 years. Tell me a little bit about kind of the process of bringing these songs to life. Did it feel really organic and natural getting back into it, or did it feel like it kind of took some time to figure out where you were going with these songs?
Well, back in the day, it was, writing, sort of demoing at home, then taking it into a rehearsal space with the band and, fleshing everything out and everybody's lending their parts in the moment. So you're able to get everything together arrangement wise, different, little guitar part wise or whatever. This album, since we're all so far apart and adults now and have all this, our other crazy life stuff. Yeah. Most of it was drum machine, writing like to sort of like my parts and the melodies, writing the song basically, then sending it, to the other players to add their parts, and then slowly sort of compiling the tracks, So it was kind of working backwards, which isn't, I would rather be in a room and do pre-production, go into a studio for a few days and just knock it out. So like goal for the next record is that. Yeah. More fun. Yeah. And you're
being in a space.
Yeah, it's just because you do like I feel like things were disconnected. In the end, it all comes together. It just takes longer,
Yeah. Johnny said the same thing to me just the other night when I saw you. He said, "We think on the next one, we'd love to get us."
Yeah,
there's something about that.
What a concept! The band's going to go into a studio and like make a record together.
Yeah. There's just something about it. And I mean, look, I think that's in life in general and in virtual space. We need to do the tools that we need to get things done. And it's just like when I started this show and I had interviews where there were Zooms or Riversides. And I'll still, for a while there, I was like, I'm not going to do them. But there's just something about if I have a guest and I'm talking to them and they're across from me, it's just totally different than we're talking. You know what I mean? It's like I can still get a good interview virtually, and I will do them. But if there's any chance that the person is willing to like come and give me the Mark Maron treatment, come to my home, FaceTime, it's crucial.
You have to.
Yeah, I love it. And so one of the things that after your daughter found me and connected us and whatever, I got invited and this is kind of where we started messaging each other, and I got to go see a little private event where you guys played and you were doing a collaboration release with Inspired Flight. How did that come together?
Well, first we were at that studio that you came to. That was where we did the first Dig record.
Was it really?
Stag Street.
I think I remember you telling me that that night.
So that was, magical for us. And there's a long story there, which is another story for another time. But
I don't know. Is it?
Well, no, I was just.
I was going to say, you're on a podcast. You could tell the story if you want.
So our engineer that did our first Runt, the Runt EP, and he helped work on the LP, and then he also, when I went and produced Ramones, I took him with me to New York, so he engineered the Ramones record with me.
Wow.
So when we did the record there, he had met the owners of Stag Street while we were there making that record. And then he started working there a little bit. Well, now they were very, very sweet people. They had passed away, and her name was Melody, and before she passed away, she left him the studio.
Wow.
So which is, just crazy. I mean, this has been, the studio's been around since the 70s, like the gear and the mics and the stories the walls have, and it's just,
it's a beautiful space. You wouldn't know it's there either. Right. It's kind of tucked away. And
so that's Trent Slatton. That's that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, so that was where we met for the first time, and I saw you play a couple Dig songs, and then Inspired Flight opened up the night a little bit with his set as well. So that was what I was curious about, that pairing.
So there's a little label out of New York called Den of Wax.
Yes, and I met him there that night too. Yeah,
great people.
Great collections of beautiful vinyl.
Yeah, they do great work. And so Matt at Den of Wax reached out to me through Facebook. It took me, because I'm really bad at checking like Facebook. It's like, but finally I got back to him, and he was interested in doing some exclusive vinyls.
Right.
So we signed a deal with him to do, and then so Inspired Flight is on the label. So
that's it.
There's where that came from. Yeah. And then we did the split 7-inch with them.
Yeah. I have that sitting over there. But that was really the night where I got a chance to meet you and connect, and then that obviously opened the door for me to be bold enough to say, come down and sing with me for Gen X Fest. Right. But what's cool about this is that seeing more and more of you, of your work, your art, your music emerging and being shared, and it's just really exciting. I just feel lucky to have had this music that's been with me since I was a teenager, and now seeing it kind of get the spotlight shined on it again, and with new music as well that still sounds amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're just into having some fun, and at this point in my life, my kids are off on their own.
Grown.
And I it's like they're that part of my life, raising our my kids and working and making sure I have all the things you need.
Yes.
But now it's like I've been able to slow down. Like I've moved up near Seattle now. I'm out in the middle of nature making music.
Love that. Love
that. So good times.
Good times. Gonna see some live shows. So will it just be kind of regional West Coast shows playing, or is it?
Well, no. I mean, the plan is to get out and do stuff.
Yeah.
We're hoping to, like, Local H is out doing like tons of stuff. The Toadies, like, hopping on a support to something that's going on would be great for us. East Coast was always really a good spot for us.
Yes.
That's our biggest markets back in the day. Like, all East Coast, Boston, huge for us. LA, West Coast, not so much.
Totally.
But, I mean, actually, like Seattle, like Oregon, that was good. But like California, San Diego, where I'm from, But whatever.
Well, and writing music from a standpoint of you don't need something from it puts you in a better artistic headspace, right? You just do it because you love it, and there's nothing really. There's just something about the sincerity of the spirit that's received in art and music when it's like, I do it because I love it, not because I need somebody to give me something for it.
Exactly.
Right.
And there's always a connection. Like this, and if two people show up to a show, there's something always happens there. There's magic every time you go play anywhere you play.
Right.
And some of like the worst shows were our best shows.
Yes.
You know, it's all good.
Yeah. Well, is there a story behind, before I let you go, because I want to talk to you forever, but is there a story behind the band name Dig and how you landed on that back then?
So my dog back then was named Dig.
Okay.
That's as deep as that goes.
I love it.
Yeah. So it's named after Dig. And Dig is our first album cover or magazine cover that we got was Dig, the dog, not us.
Really?
Was the dog, yes. And if you look on the folds of the first LP,
yeah,
Dig is there.
Dig is there.
Yeah. And so we did everything ourselves back then. So for the album artwork, the squishy head, that was Dig's toy that was in my backyard in Toluca Lake. Yes.
Yeah. So for those of you watching, I have the hat right here, which has the original squishy toy. I was wearing this the other day and somebody was like, what is that? And I was like, I'm pretty sure it's a squishy toy.
That's why it worked. Because people, it's like, is that food? Yeah. So that was and we just taking pictures of everything in my backyard, that we used possibly. And so we made a little like white cyc with the back of a poster that we had and just took that picture and that was it.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's how, anybody that I come across today is talk about the record that's the squishy head that you guys had that, and it's like, yeah, that's us. They know us by the squishy head.
Yeah.
So now we call our people squishy heads.
And then is there a memory from that time in the 90s of touring with other bands where you have a funny or interesting interaction with another artist or band that you cross paths with? You were like, that was always a memorable moment for you, or they were cool?
I mean, yes. I don't, there was no, everybody was cool. It was, we've never really had a bad time out with anybody, like, and we've toured with like, the Ramones and Bad Brains, and Henry Rollins was like the sweetest guy ever. I mean, he was really scary at first because he's a scary dude, but he's the sweetest guy ever.
This is the third time now Henry Rollins has come up on this show because Kira Rossler dated him for a short window, was in Black Flag, and she talks about how funny and sweet and amazing he is. And then Kevin Martin from Candlebox had a great Rollins story, but it is funny because the initial is he's so intimidating, but really so nice. So I love that this is the third time this has been confirmed. Henry Rollins is a nice guy.
Yes, definitely. But stories, one that I always laugh about is we were on tour with Bad Brains, and we're out in the middle of nowhere, and we had bought this airport shuttle bus, and that's how we traveled around. And it had one of the doors that, and so we were on our way to a gig wherever in the middle of nowhere, and it breaks down, and so we had to hurry up and fix it, and so we were like rushing to get there, and we have to get there. We're just gonna pull up. I'm gonna run in, tell them that we're here so we can still play. So because we're like, trying not to stop too much and everybody has to pee all the time, we had this 5-gallon jug, a Sparklets bottle down in the steps of the door, right? So So down there, we had a 5-gallon Sparklets bottle with a funnel with a tube that went out. And that was our
so you guys could keep going.
Yeah,
and not have to stop.
Yeah, you can't stop. It's like, I mean, I was talented. I could pee in a beer bottle,
It's a skill.
Some people
it is a skill.
Needed the funnel, needed a little extra.
Yeah. Not all of us were taught how to aim well.
So the long drive, full 5-gallon pee, full on, and so it's like pull up, open the door. I'm just gonna run in. Well, there's a line of people in front of the door, like they're just lined up, and so we're pulling up, next to just. I want to say 1,000 people were standing out waiting to get in.
Yeah.
We pull up, open the door, and the pee bottle just falls out and it goes boom, 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 and this pee is going everywhere right in front of all the people. And I'm like, I go back and I go, shut the door, drive, just drive. We leave the pee, and on the bottle, somebody have written on our pee bottle, like, dig for your urination privation or something. And so it's like, obviously ours, we were dig.
No.
Yes.
My God, that's great. That is a good story.
Yes.
That's like the dig pee bottle story.
Right.
That's perfect. Well, Scott, is there anything that we can point the audience to just to go check out, support? Just look up Dig and on the streamers and
yeah. So it's on the Instagrams. And I have the link there.
Yeah.
And
the Instagram handle though is it Dig the. Is it just
Dig the Band?
Dig the Band.
Yes.
So I wanted to make sure that's
Dig the
important,
Band.
because if you just go in and type in
dig, there's a lot of digs out there.
A lot of digs.
Yeah.
And so you got to have Dig the Band. So they can find you on Instagram and they can keep up with, where you're going to be, where you're going to be playing, releases, definitely checking out and then all of the EPs and albums and stuff that you have. in your
it's all
catalog.
there.
It's all there. That's good. I just want to point them in the right direction.
And we are the first EP. We had 2 EPs that aren't released.
Yeah.
Which we're soon going to have those
Great.
out and on vinyl, and it'll be streaming it too. So, which aren't available now. So that's going to come out, hopefully soon.
Awesome.
I mean, with our pace, it's going to be 10 years from now, but it's going to happen.
No, hopefully it'll be out right around the time that everybody hears this episode. But thank you again for taking the time. And again, just was such a pleasure to share the stage. I hope that's the first of many times where we get to go up on stage and perform.
It's got to be a yearly thing.
Now, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I love that we're both in. Well, I'm actually. You're up in Seattle now, so it's not like I can see you that regularly, but you find your way down here from time to time, which is a good thing. So
I have reasons to come down.
You have reasons to come here. Good reasons. Well, thank you again for coming on Waterproof Records. I had a blast. This was a great conversation. And again, everybody, go check out Dig I and everything else, and keep an eye out for where they might be playing in a city near you soon. So thanks for joining me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
I had such a good time sitting down with Scott and learning more about his life, his inspirations, his upbringings, learn more about the history of Dig, those early years and what he's been up to ever since. It was just such a cool, fun, casual conversation. And that's what I enjoy so much about the show. I get a chance to perform with him on stage at Gen X Fest, but then we get to sit down and get to know each other, which is super cool for me. And I hope it was fun for you too. So thanks for joining me on this episode. If this was your first episode, welcome to Waterproof Records. I hope you enjoyed the show. There are 108 episodes more before this one, and I hope there's many more to come thanks to you tuning in and listening. And if you've been with me since the beginning, or at least for many of these episodes, thank you for coming back. Thank you for supporting Waterproof Records. I hope you're sharing this show with your friends and telling people about it. And we've got more guests coming. I've got some deep dives and some albums coming up on the way. But I've got to tell you, of course, about Pantheon Podcast. Pantheon Podcast is the experts of all things music podcast. They have so many out there. And if you like my show, I know you'll probably find another couple hundred shows that you might enjoy listening to that are on their network. So thank you to Pantheon Podcast. I'm grateful to be a part of their network. And of course, I have to tell you once again about distrokid.com/VIP/waterproof. Save yourself 30%. It's important to save everything we can in this world, especially us starving artists, right? So use that link, save yourself the money to upload your music with the world. So once again, thank you for joining me for today's episode. Thank you to Scott and Dig. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Waterproof Records. See you next time.
Things are gonna change, I can feel it.
If this gonna be that kind of party, I'm gonna
Waterproof